Welcome back to the Win with Dice podcast, a podcast featuring members of the Win with Dice team. I'm Calvin, and I'm joined here by Ramon.
Hey guys, this is your first time listening to the Win with Dice podcast. This is a podcast all about tabletop RPGs. Calvin and I take a casual approach to the hobby, so we like to talk about the games that we run and the games that we play in, and the cool, wonderful people we get to experience the hobby with. If this is your first time hearing about tabletop RPGs or D&D or whatever, what are you doing? Go find yourself a table and go have some fun. And if you are a player at someone's table, well, maybe it's your turn to jump behind the GM screen.
Indeed. So this week, I wanted to talk about a Lancer game I ran a couple of months ago towards the end of the year over on the Untold Stories Project channel. Had a lot of fun with that one-shot that turned into a two-shot because every one-shot over there ends up getting longer because we flim-flam too much. But yeah, I want to get into the game. I want to talk about some stuff that I mixed up a bit to play Lancer, and some ways it turned out very interesting and some things I wish I had changed. But before we get into all of that fun stuff, which is the most important part of the show, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week.
Yes, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week, brought to you by Calvin. Thanks, Calvin.
All right, so I will go into this with more detail as we get into the recap proper, but one thing that just comes to mind when talking about this particular session is bending or breaking the rules of a game in order to support better story decisions, if that makes sense. Sort of feeling free to lean away from having to follow certain rules. And I know this might be a bit hypocritical for me to say, given how rigidly I follow some rule structures. And there is like a place for that sort of thing, obviously. Like, you're playing a game to play that game. But if you find yourself in a position where, like, you have to skew something just slightly in a way that's not going to have a permanent effect down the line, then you should feel free to stretch that thing. Or if you have to, like, make up a certain rule or make a certain edge case so that a creature's abilities can work the way that you specifically want it to. Even if you have to find a way to balance or counteract that. Like, for me, outside of this Lancer game, I did have a Pathfinder 2nd edition game where the boss enemy had the power to stop time, and there was nothing like rules that was written for that specific ability. I kind of had to make it myself, and, you know, obviously it's a bit of a stretch and unbalances things significantly, but what I did instead was just find a way to balance that and make it work. Like, it's okay to sort of step out of the bounds of the normal rules of the game, invent your own character abilities, invent your own systems, homebrew your own rules if you need to make something work in a way that's better for sort of the narrative and the story that you want to build with your players.
Yeah, and a little bit of like a side point to that. If you feel like you want to mess around with a bad guy or something like that, I would just take abilities from other bad guys of similar power level or like weaker or stronger or whatever. Not change anything, not even look at like how to adjust it to their stat block. Just use it, and the players won't know a difference.
Yeah, especially in games like Pathfinder, you can definitely do that very well because everything's just magic, and sometimes the enemies can do things you can't do.
Yeah, I mean, I think even in Lancer, which is what we're talking about today, if you need like your I don't know, like your samurai enemy mech to shoot rocket missiles, just give him the Rainmaker's rocket abilities. That's fine. Maybe make it once per match or something, or like meet a certain requirement so like it's thematic, being like, oh yeah, you know, all of a sudden he like his sword opens up and it's like a bunch of missiles. That would be kind of cool. You know, that kind of stuff. That can definitely spice up a game, and you don't have to follow all of the rules of a game, as long as it's for the sake of having fun and not just beating up your players.
Exactly. All right, well, let's get into this quick recap of this game of Lancer that I have run. So, yeah, it was a couple months ago because it was towards the end of the year. The Untold Stories Project channel was doing a bunch of, like, one-shots, as they normally do, playing a bunch of different games that don't get a lot of play on the channel or really in general. And as is tradition at this point, because this is the second time I've done this, I chose to run a Lancer game. And I guess also, as is tradition, it ran a bit long. So previously, I had a group of players who were dealing with a moon apocalypse, essentially. There's a terraforming device that was on a moon over a planet that was newly joining Union. But the device was taken over by space pirates who caused havoc with it, which sort of caused an issue with this ancient computer that was operating beneath the moon's surface unbeknownst to anyone else. And because of that, the moon was becoming denser and was about to fall into the planet, so the Lancers had to get over there. They found the space pirates. They stopped this machine. They did the thing where they fought a weird space orb. So I am already a top-tier sci-fi adventure writer.
You say that twice.
Because that's the main thing, right? They gotta fight an orb. I've already reached the peak.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any if I make any. If any of my tables of RPGs ever finally get off the ground, I'll make sure that the players can fight an orb at least once.
You need at least one. But yeah, after that, this kind of takes place after that adventure because I did have some of the same players. At the time, I wasn't able to get Ramon on, although Ramon, your character, oh no, I'm blanking on the name, Duke, had made quite an impression in the first adventure. But this time around, so we had Hellion, who is in a Blackbeard by the name of Heracles Zero. That's the one with the cool, like...
It's the coolest name, I think. Heracles Zero is... I don't know, whatever... Anytime there's like a robot that has zero in its name, it just like instantly becomes the coolest thing ever. I don't know why.
I think that one was inspired by Pacific Rim names.
True.
There's Longhorn in Raleigh, named Red Angus, which is just a pun for something vaguely Western sounding, but is also like beef. There's Empress in a Tokugawa called Silver Hierophant, because it's a JoJo's reference. And you can tell when I wrote things based on what I reference. There is Free Shooter, who is in a Death's Head called Filthy Acts at a Reasonable Price, which is also a very stretched JoJo reference. And then the new player is Matador, who is in a Minotaur with the codename New Best Friend, which I think was inspired from the name generator on CompCon, but it just really fit the idea I had for the character, so I stuck with it.
Cool.
So all these were pre-gen characters. I made like a dozen or so and had the players just like pick one they wanted. I left the backstories like kind of vague, or at least the personalities, so that people could sort of come in and, you know, add their own ideas to it, which they very much did, and that was a lot of fun to see. But these Lancers were called together for a mission working with Union. They were aboard a ship called the Nijimura, and they were in a meeting room with the same character from last time, Union Special Agent Holly Atro, who, I mean, I don't know if it necessarily makes sense for them to be working with this specific agent multiple times in multiple planets or whatever, but I kind of wanted to do it because I wanted to have a repeating setting that I could come back to for one-shots or a longer campaign if necessary.
Well, I mean, maybe she just travels with them and they're like, the special agent is the Lancer's handler, right? It's like she's still responsible for these jabronis, so she's gonna stick around.
I certainly hope so. I have ideas that will only make sense for her if we play a campaign. Maybe we will. I don't know. But yeah, she did mention that some of the characters had worked with her recently, dealing with some space pirates that almost created a moonfall apocalypse. Just casually, like you do. As well as the new pilot, Matador. But what started at the beginning, Atro showed them a display of a planet known as Boreas 6, and more specifically, a science/research outpost called the Caldera Colony, which has been, for the last year or so, having supply issues because their drops of, like, supplies such as equipment and food and things like that have not been being properly delivered. The colony itself has been present long enough that people have like settled down there, started families, that sort of thing, so in many ways it's largely self-sustaining, but it still needs occasional drops of supplies, which are normally delivered from some Union subsidiary. So in addition to those supply drops not being delivered, actually I think people will be familiar with this because this is the adventure we came up with like a few episodes ago, just with more details.
Yeah,
but
throw the link below, Future Calvin.
Yeah, Future Calvin will find it. But in addition to those supply drops not being delivered, patrols and like guards who are out on patrol are saying or making like strange and conflicting reports of like movement they're seeing outside of the colony perimeter. The latest delivery had extra security, and it was still attacked, so it would seem, and only one pilot survived. A mercenary who has expertise in extreme environments, who was found days later, sort of adrift in the remains of a dropship. He also made a report that Agent Atro referred to as very strange. So Atro believed that it was just scavengers or pirates in the area. They did have some data to sort of indicate that there was like some mech activity in the area. So her assumption was like, it's just a handful of space pirates. You've dealt with space pirates before. This is no problem at all. But when the party sort of wondered like what was sort of strange about the reports, Atro described the mercenary as being very eccentric, to which the party started to wonder if that's the bad kind of eccentric and if they had to bring him or they could just leave him behind. And Atro was just like, you can leave him on the ship, it's fine. But when they wanted further details about what the mercenary actually saw, she suggested that they ask themselves. So as they headed down to the hangar to sort of meet with the mercenary and the dropship pilots that will bring them down to the surface, because again the plan was to make the delivery with 2 heavily armored dropships. As they headed down there, they introduced themselves to the pilot, who was also the new player in the game, someone who was playing for the first time, but also was a big fan of Gundams, so might have picked up on some other references I made in the game. So they were trading stories back and forth. This was sort of the moment where I realized this game might go a bit long because the players are having a lot of fun with these conversations, and I really didn't want to interrupt them. So, like, when they were asking about this new pilot, like, Hellion only really cared that he was competent. Empress mentioned the team was very chaotic and kind of shushed Longhorn for objecting. Matador was just confirming that he is very mentally stable, and Empress was like, yeah, not for long. Longhorn was asking about Matador's mech, which was called New Best Friend, and then the poor player had to deal with me giving his mech a very silly name.
Maybe you should change it.
No, it's great.
Although to be fair, it's really appropriate for a Minotaur who just locks somebody down and be like, okay, you can't move away from me. We're gonna hug now.
Exactly.
We're gonna. It's like
the Minotaur is like the safest frame for a pilot, so of course it's his new best friend.
Yeah, even if it blows up, you're fine.
But yeah, the Empress mocked the name, and in the meantime, Longhorn, of all people, was forming a plan. And Hellion at first assumed that Longhorn had a terrible idea, but then when he said he had a good idea, she was then more worried.
She was like, confirmed. This is a bad idea.
But it wasn't too bad an idea. The idea that Longhorn had was splitting the delivery with the 2 dropships, with one acting as a decoy to distract the pirates or scavengers, and it could have Matador inside. The plan was codenamed Running of the Bulls, although he offered that the plan could be called Hot Pocket instead if Empress was the one who was lying in wait for the ambush, because Empress's whole thing is setting stuff on fire. So as they finally got to the hangar, they were wondering, like, well, Empress was wondering where the crazy guy is, and Matador was like, are we really insulting the man who just went through a traumatic experience? Longhorn was like, not to his face. And Hellion is just questioning the idea of putting him back in that situation. And again, I just really like the different directions that everybody took their characters in, where one's like the sort of bouncing off the walls, set stuff on fire, always energetic kind of person. One is the more like cool, competent leader. And I didn't really plan for them to be like that, but they just turned out that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, it's always fun to have a straight man to play off of, right? Like, this is kind of why I miss, rest in peace, Fallon. Fallon was a little bit of the straight man for the rest of us.
That's true, yeah.
Although he could clown if he wanted to, but as well as like Teagues was also the straight man for a lot of shit. So it's always good for antics. So thank you, all the straight men out there for making our crazy antics way better.
Yeah, it is a fun thing to be and also to not be. But yeah, when they get to the hangar, it's like full of activity. There's 2 dropships being prepped, the August and the Itsuka, which is a very clever and stealthy reference to Iron-Blooded Orphans that I'm sure no one noticed. But they were waved over to a vehicle by a young man in a uniform, which Matador returned his handshake and Empress pulled him into a hug. For some reason, those two also decided they had a rivalry with each other, which was also very fun. I have some notes of everybody's banter, but I think it's going to be more fun for people to actually just go and watch the episode. I'll have it linked below.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were met with Warrant Officer Ryu Takaki, who was going to be driving the actual supply truck that would be loaded onto the dropships, and he was going over the contents of the supplies. There's food, there's scientific equipment, and there was also a box of toys that Atro snuck in there because there are some kids in the colony, and she's just that kind of person.
Nice. Just a. All I can think about is Die Hard. I was a real Christmas movie kind of feels.
Absolutely. But yeah, as Ryu's talking about the cargo and everything, Longhorn is just yeah, so how long did all this take? And he's a little confused at first, but then it was made clear that they're going to need an extra supply crate because they need one for their decoy plan and all that. So they had to stop everything and reorganize the dropships for this plan. But that is when they met our mysterious older man who stepped out of the shadows. They could see that he had one piercing blue eye and the other eye was glassy and gray with a scar over it. And this is Fareed Rodi, who was referred to as Ahab by the players so much that became his middle name. So his full name is Fareed Ahab Rodi, which is possibly another IBO reference. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's just a Moby Dick reference, but
bit of both.
He does have a white whale, right? So
indeed he does, because he started to describe the events that happened and what happened to his team. And he says that they were attacked by a giant feathered beast called King Turkidorah. Or at least that's what his team named it before they were killed by it.
Oh my god, it named it before they died. Stop.
And yeah, Turkidorah is a giant turkey monster, just to fit, I guess, with the holiday theme, that has 3 heads, and each of them have a different power. Fareed, or I guess Ahab, as I just refer to him, Ahab revealed that one of the heads could shoot fire and one shot an ice beam. As he was describing it, the party also considered that a turkey monster could also feed a lot of people if they were able to bring it back to the colony.
Oh my god.
So that could really help solve their food problem.
Yeah.
But the plan was, again, adjusted slightly because they decided to include food scraps from the mess hall into this new empty crate, along with, a bunch of trackers, so that they could use the food crate to lure the Turkidorah and have it take that back to its lair. Hellion talked to Agent Atro about getting that plan set up, and she was like, so why didn't you tell us about the big turkey monster? And Atro's just like, because that can't possibly be true.
Of course not. You wouldn't have a whole dude with a scar and a long tail of craziness for it not to be true, Calvin. One of these, it's almost like Agent Atro doesn't believe that she's an NPC in a made-up tabletop RPG experience.
She can't see past the fourth wall.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were able to have the ship would the larger ship itself, the Nijimura, would be in place, but Aisho had full faith in the Lancers to figure things out and deal with what she assumed was space pirates. But she did also admit that if there's actually a turkey monster down there, then she will have lost a bet. Which obviously caught the players' ears, because some of them also got in on the betting. Which would certainly come back later. I mean, I don't remember how commerce works in Lancer. I'm pretty sure it's like a post-capitalism utopia, but whatever.
Hey, well, I mean, luxury stuff are still luxury stuff. They still cost something to get.
True. But yeah, they made their plans, they finalized the details, they figured out who would go on what ship. And in the meantime, Ahab and Matador were having conversations because they realized, because of the image I used for Matador's character, there was this realization that both of them were missing an eye. So they were having a chat about that, and then the players, for some reason, took time to help Ahab get through his survivor skills.
What? just banging it out, eh? Just being like, hey man, it's okay.
Something like that, yeah. Actually, they stopped to talk to him for a bit, so they were rewarded with a bit more information. So they learned that the third turkey head also shot acid. But in addition, I guess they had Ahab as a resource now going forward if we play with these characters again.
I guess so. They made a new friend.
So yeah, they also met with the head of maintenance, who was the one who was managing all the bets, so they got that figured out, because it's very important.
Yeah.
But with all that done, and more banter between Empress and Matador, they finally set off. And at this point, so as we were streaming this, we were down another player for the first half of the first stream. But then that player was able to join when the stream went on break, so we came back and Free Shooter joined with, like, I'm just picturing like a Smash Bros trailer intro when someone is added to the game.
Nice.
Which was fun because Free Shooter is among my favorites of the pre-gen characters. I love all of them, I don't play favorites, but Free Shooter is one of my favorites. But yeah, now with the team together, they were able to head off onto the planet of Boreas 6. As the ship was coming down, first it was like heating up as it moved through the atmosphere, and then it was pushing through the snow, and the snow was like turning into steam along the surface of the ship. Don't ask me if that's physically accurate, I just thought it was a cool visual. In addition to the plan, Free Shooter attached her mech to the crate, the lure bait crate for Turkidorah. And then a large shadow passed over the dropships with this rumbling warble as the turkey approached.
Rumbling warble. I love it.
As the turkey sounds echoes through the sky. But yeah, so with the two pilots then, and I think I had to roll a skill check for one of the pilots as well. Because Turkidorah was taking the bait from the Itsuka ship, while on the August, the pilot wanted to get out of there as fast as possible once the bait was taken, so the ship was like in a free fall to drop faster. So I had to roll a skill check for that, which kind of barely succeeded. So at that point, we split up a bit. Some of the team was going with the actual delivery to make sure it was dropped off safely. Some of the team was on the original bait ship, and Free Shooter was hanging on to the crate. So Free Shooter was able to see like where the Turkidorah nest was. And I did manage to pull things in a direction so I could use the actual map that I had prepped for the adventure, fortunately. So as Turkidorah lands in its nest, Free Shooter still clinging to this crate, she's able to stay like hidden, so Turkidorah wasn't like, oh, there's a person here. Let me eat that immediately. But more importantly, Free Shooter was able to hear like small chirping sounds. I mean, relatively small compared to Turkidorah.
Normal chirping sounds from a very large, small bird.
Yeah. The scale is weird. But she was able to see that there were like baby Turkidorahs in the cave. Although we did find out that baby turkeys are called poults. which is something we did not know.
Polts. Okay.
So there were 2 Polts in there, both of them having 3 heads. But with the location found, free shooter sort of light in wait for the rest of the team to arrive. The map itself is like this ice field with a cave on one side, and it's sort of like covered and protected by this ridge of rocks in front of it. The tokens were placed, and then combat was started. So yeah, at that point, this is where I guess I can get into how Turkidorah worked. So the way that I made Turkidorah is I made 4 tokens, and I tried to have them like balanced for the party, like the number of people that I had. So each of the heads was an elite. The body itself was a veteran, so it had a bit more HP, but then the heads also had an extra turn.
Right.
And then I just had to I had to skew things a bit, because technically each part was a different entity, but obviously if the thing is moving, they all have to move at once. So I kind of had like the body doing most of the movement, and this is one of the things that I wish I had changed. I wish I had given the heads maybe a bit more to do. I did have like a backup ability on all of them for like a beak attack, but for the most part their things were, each of them had their own special abilities. So like the acid one, that had some stuff borrowed from the monstrosity type of monsters, so it had a corrosive bite and it had acid spit, which was pretty straightforward. The other 2, I did have to mix things up a bit. So the one that shot fire, I just yoinked the flamethrower from the pyro NPC, and the one that shot ice, I borrowed the gravity beam from the barricade NPC, and I just like renamed it Ice Beam, because basically what it does is if something gets hit, it's slowed.
Yeah.
And it does energy damage, and I was like, let's close it up to an Ice Beam.
I mean, that's basically what like the flavor of that elemental attack would look like anyway, right? It's like,
yeah,
you know, cold, it's slow. Yeah, that makes sense.
I kind of wish I had increased the damage on that one instead of just taking it as is, but just like reflavoring it. But otherwise, like, that wasn't too bad. I just felt like a lot of the time the heads didn't have a ton to do other than just like normal attack stuff, I guess, if that makes sense, because it's also like a creature. I don't remember if a creature can lock on. I think that was like the one tech thing it could do, but I don't think I had done that during the combat.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, you could have probably given them like any other support ability. I'm not too sure, but I think giving them the ability to move like on the head's turns would have made sense too, because it's like a 3-headed three-headed thing. So then it was like, you know, if the head wanted to move, then the body just has to, because that's how bodies work. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I do think I should have given them more support stuff.
I'm so surprised you gave the body a turn. I mean, I would have given the body a turn anyway, but I'm surprised that you held it so, like, only the body can move, because it has the legs.
Well, it did get paralyzed a lot from, I forget what it was. I think Matador had done something to it that was able to immobilize it. But yeah, the body did have Rampage, but unfortunately, and this is some Lancer terminology stuff, so it had a thing where it can move in a line and do damage, but it has recharge 5+. And what that means is I have to roll a d6, and if I get a 5+ on that d6, then I can use that ability again.
And I guess you just were not able to get it to go again?
Nope, you know how it goes.
Yeah, good old Calvin luck. Never shows up unless you're trying to not kill a player. That's
right.
That's when it's like, no, actually, you're rolling. You need to roll hotter.
Yeah, so there were some turns where I kind of didn't have much to do with the turkey head other than just like it'll do its bite and then it'll do its own special thing. And for ones where the special thing had to recharge, like the acid head with its corrosive bite, I just wouldn't have that option. So those were some ways where I kind of wish I put more in there, like a support option if possible. And again, because I just reflavored like the gravity beam and stuff like that. Like, I wonder if I could have reflavored something from the support mechs. I mean, maybe. I'll at least have that idea for another time. But yeah.
You could have taken like the foam part of like I think there's a support mech. I think it's called the support. I'm pretty sure that allows you to spray like this foam. It's like it becomes difficult terrain. You could have flavored that as like snow, because it would have been on the ice one. Yeah, and like I think that it would have been if you weren't able to use the breath attack, if you're gonna keep it so that the bodies can't move, I would say like you could spend an action to just re-roll that recharge, because that would be totally fair, because then you know you have more chances to use the abilities. I mean, it's already kind of like a weird boss monster kind of thing anyway, and I'm pretty sure the players would have been like, yeah, that makes sense. Like,
True.
You know what I mean? Like, or you should just had to like throw a rock or something. Just do like a generic rock throw ability and just
you know what? Because if I had done that, like it could rip a piece of ice out of the ground and throw it, and then that might be able to become like dangerous terrain. Like one random area near it, one random space near it rather, becomes dangerous or difficult terrain. I forget if there's a specific term for it, but it could be a thing where if someone steps there, maybe the ice breaks.
That could work. You could also even have it like roar or something, and then it gives like the next. That's how you could have gotten like your accuracy or like bonus damage or some nonsense to it, right?
Ooh, yeah,
like
that
you could have had
too.
the heads. Yeah, so then it's like, you know, but you can only use it when it's like doesn't have the breath attack weapon, because it's got nothing to do, and that's how you could run it. So at least like every turn, even though like they're not getting pelted by like all these like energy based attacks and like getting all these status effects on them, they can like, you would have the boss boost itself, so it's next time it's able to do it, it can like, you know, really hurt or like do it faster because it's just spending actions, right? So
yeah,
the players will be pressed to be like, oh fuck, we gotta do this fast, because you know it's recharging, or it's gonna get the next attack, or like maybe it'll determine like whether the players move out of the range, right? That might be a thing too, right? Like you could have had the heads affect the boost the body on the turns where the heads can't do anything, and then the body would be, I'm assuming the body had like a bunch of melee attacks.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It had I had a claw attack on there that I think was either the same or a bit stronger than the normal one, and it had the rampage ability.
Yeah, so you know, like maybe like on the turns where like it couldn't do the breath attack, you could have it like charge up the body with like a big roar, and then like the next body attack it does like extra damage because it's all riled up, or like cracks the ice or something because it's all riled up, right? Like,
I might have to make a note of this in case I run another weird organic creature.
yeah. I think that like you could have even just taken the missile, the rocket ability from the Rainmaker and just been like, oh yeah, it shoots spikes out of its feathers. It's feather spikes. Wow. They're missiles now.
Might need to have a second Turkidorah.
Oh, yeah. You know, I don't. Well, let's get to the end of this because I have an idea for that.
I was gonna say I did have spined on the ice one, so when it gets hit by a melee weapon, then it automatically does some armor piercing damage to the attacker, just because I wanted to give it like, you know, a different flavor kind of thing. And I think I'll put an image of the tokens I made, because I do like the tokens. I think they were very funny. But yeah, the players, they enjoyed the fight. Matador was able to get in there, but he kept getting hit by like everybody else's like area of effect stuff. Especially because the Minotaur frame has kind of low evasion, and his agility saves were not very were just very unlucky, let's say. He did end up getting hit quite a lot, but you know, he was the new guy on the team, so everybody gets one.
Yeah, everyone just like chucks up to be like, new guy, get out of the way. Trying to do my job here.
I did have a moment because the player told me the character they wanted, and I had a moment where I was like, if this was against like a bunch of mechs, that character would probably be really awesome at this, but against an organic thing with a bunch of tech-based powers. But how do I, like, say it's probably a bad idea to pick this character without giving too much away?
I think that you could have just told them, like, hey, man, I don't think you could just said like I don't think this is gonna work, just because of its abilities or whatever, right, or the thing that you're fighting. But I mean, that's fine, I guess.
Yeah, I just like my first thought was like if I say it's probably a bad idea to pick this character, I would probably have to give like a reason, and if I give the reason, like it's probably not going to be very effective against the enemy in this game. That would give away the big Act 1 twist.
Yeah, fair.
But he did turn out pretty well still, because I forget which thing it was, but it's a thing that it does that like stuns or immobilizes stuff, and I think we were using it that it was able to work on the organic creature still.
Okay.
So I mean, to be fair, Matador is the reason the thing didn't move a lot. Because it was immobilized every now and then. Enough for people to get in there and just throw grenades on it, of course.
Yeah, I think Matador also has a trait where it's like, if you just... It doesn't matter how big you are, you have to stop once you're in engagement rate with it. So you can just literally just be a roadblock. Like, you just can't walk by it. You have to say hi. Like...
Pretty much. Although the acid spewing head just really did not like the smug aura of the cowboy Longhorn, so that he did shoot at Longhorn quite a bit, even though Longhorn kept running away. But the party was able to eventually fell Turkidorah in a very epic battle. Free Shooter and Hellion got some really good attacks in there as well. And yeah, they were eventually victorious. They repaired and everything. And then they collected the two Polts. The team took one, and Ahab requested the other one, and he named each of the heads after a member of his fallen team, which I had made into a Gundam 00 reference that I was the only one who understood, because apparently not enough people watch 00, but I think it's really good. That's a separate Gundam rant. But yeah, and then they reported back to Holly that she lost her bet. Also, that Empress blew up some batteries on her mech again, so the repair team was probably going to be mad at her. Apparently, the repair team has also bought Empress a bunch of mugs that are just most explosive pilot or something like that.
That's funny.
Yeah, I don't know, part of me, as far as running more Lancer online goes, part of me has been thinking about running one of the campaigns that we've talked about a bunch of times, but part of me is also I like this little setting that we have here, but it's also functionally made for one-shots.
Yeah, well, I think that that's the beauty of Lancer, I think, that you could do a bunch of one-shots. You could do an extended, a campaign or story. A story is just a bunch of little one-shots put together. I mean, that was all of our streams. It's just a bunch of little one-shots with very, very vague threads connecting them. It's mostly just there's a thing that you guys got to do, and you guys are the heroes, so here you go. This is your problem now.
Fair. I mean, if I run a Lancer campaign, though, I gotta get you in on it, because it would only be fair.
I gotta weave it up with Duke and his need for speed.
They reported that Holly lost her bet. Holly mentioned that the weather was calming a bit, and just asked them to basically check in on Caldera, make sure the delivery went fine and that everybody was, safe and everything. So the party got back there. We had a bit of a touching moment as some kids were taking note of the box of toys, and one was an action figure that looked like their mechs.
Nice.
There was a moment where I think it was Longhorn was oh, hey, that one looks like yours, talking to Empress, and then just pointed to a nearby campfire.
That's a good one.
And then Matador was getting in on it as well, and then Empress was oh yeah, well, there's yours. It just pointed to a box of spare parts. So yeah, we had a lot of fun. They had their holiday moment. They brought back the roast beast. And the Lancer's heart grew 3 sizes that day.
Nice.
But the adventure was not yet over, because while Hellion and Free Shooter were helping to like secure the perimeter, they did pick up on the presence of something moving within the perimeter of the colony, which they reported to Agent Atro as they sort of rejoined and headed out to find a unit of similarly colored mechs. It seemed like these were these scavengers that had been in the area, and they made a very dramatic entrance, all sort of like landing among the snow very dramatically, and their leader kind of like flipped in and then brandished a big mech sword that's sort of glowing. And then Empress was like, "Did it take you a while to plan that dramatic entrance?" And then their leader was like, "When you face the Marauders, you gotta expect a show." And then that was the ending. And I guess that'll be the cold open if we come back to this at any point.
Yeah, that's I love the cliffhanger ending.
Yeah, these I don't know where that's going. I had a team of dorks, and I was like, aha, here they are. And whenever,
all of your teams are just dorks. I'm pretty sure.
That's fair. But these ones on purpose. And yeah, that was how the one shot ended. And I think I might go ahead and give the tokens for those guys another pass, because now that I have access to retrograde minis, like more expanded options, might give these guys more better looking armor or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think that well, if you do run it again, and you do have the same players, maybe you can even level them up a little bit.
That is one thing I have been giving like some thought to, because like you know, we're working with pre-gen characters and everything, but I feel like the players have put so much into those characters of their own ideas and their own personality and everything, that it would make sense they can make some decisions for leveling up the character. But also, like, I mean, I don't know, that feels like a more campaign kind of thing. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like, if we're gonna do that, I would want it to be more than just a one-shot.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, like, maybe just ask the players if, like, there's anything that they want to change with the character, and just be like, hey, do you there anything you think that doesn't work? Because maybe your ideas aren't good. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess they were, because they've been working, so.
It's also a matter of, like, how do I explain leveling up to everybody? Because with Lancer, especially at the level their characters are at, you have a lot of options to work with. So it's like, how do I make this as easy as possible? Like, do I just make a list of, like, here are some possible things you could pick up on your next license level? Because they can take, like, anything, right? The easiest thing would just be to take the next level in whatever their particular frame is. But they can take whatever they want, technically, so...
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, you could even just present the options to them. I think sticking with, like, you can become the third level of, like, this in this license, I think would be pretty useful, because then it's like, you don't have to, it's not hard, and it's gonna work, right? I'm pretty sure Empress would love burning fingers, so, like, I'm thinking I don't want to deprive her of that joy of finally, you know, saying the line. Like,
fair. Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Like, maybe I could just look at, like, here's what you get at the next level, and just make, like, a list of that for each of the player frames, like the ones that they were specifically using in the game, and then just give them that option, or say, or if there's a specific thing you want to do, maybe there's something to make it work.
I would just be like, because you don't even know if you're going to run this one-shot again anyway, maybe just in your character personal, like your one-shot character notes, just be like, hey, if this was ever a third-level character, this is what it would look like, and this is the like the things that it would change. Like, maybe just make like another versions of those. You don't have to start with all of them, but it might be good to have a little bit of range so you don't always have to, like, you know, level down stuff to fit that second license level or whatever, right? Like, you can have a little bit of flexibility on your one shots, because like maybe like if I was wanted to do a one shot, I could choose I'm familiar with Lancer already, right? Like if you give me, but I don't want to make a character, I could just choose one of yours. It doesn't matter what license level it is. I'll make it work, right?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I'll do that then, and then see. I don't like. It depends on like the schedule as well too, if that happens again. But at the very least, it might be
next Christmas, folks. This is the next Christmas on the UPS. Gabba's gonna run another one shot. The return of the three-headed warbler. I was gonna say.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say you should just revive King Turkidorah as like metal King Turkidorah. Like,
oh no!
Now it's just like a robot inspired by King Turkidorah, so now it can be hacked and stuff. Like just take the same concept but just make it a robot.
That's actually really good.
Yeah,
I don't know if I can get away with that, but it's really good.
Then you can have all the heads just be elites of whatever the thing that you want it to be, and then just like feel like, hey, it's done, and then I don't know how it would work out, but yeah, I think it would be kind of funny. Or like make it to be like a Zord thing where like you have a bunch of dorks who just combine to this stupid giant robot, and then the party has to fight it.
Oh, that would be really cool though. Like, you just rebalances, so you have maybe like 3 enemies, you put them together, it becomes one size 3 enemy. But it has a whole bunch of different abilities and everything. Ooh. You know what I need for Lancer is just like, how do you run like a combined enemy? Something that's made of a bunch of smaller enemies. I need someone to write that book.
I think Interpoint Stations probably has something for you. They do have just like a giant platform. So maybe that's where it is. Maybe you got to pick up Interpoint's book.
Ooh, I actually did want to, because I wanted to see all those variations to like Lancer combat and stuff. That's probably gonna be something to look into in the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the battle against Turkidorah. It was a ton of fun. The players really enjoyed it, and I'm really happy that they had a lot of fun. And we ended up having to take up 2 streams because of that. But yeah, like my thing with Lancers still so far is I'm always thinking back on like, I wish I'd done X, Y, and Z thing, but everybody's still having fun, so the only thing is just a matter of getting more experience with the system and then coming in with fun ideas.
Yeah, that's always the good part about one shots, is that it's the time you experiment. And yeah. It's if you stretch that out into a campaign, things get weird, but if you keep it to a one shot, it's good.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'll look at the level up stuff and then I'll talk to them. I'll figure something out. If there's ever like a moment open in the schedule, I will just like stick my face in there. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it for now. Ramon, was there anything else you wanted to talk about with regards to this episode or this creature, the King Turkidorah?
Well, I hope that you get a chance to run it again or run something similar. Maybe we can even put something up on the website of like, if you want to run King Turkidorah in your campaign, okay. These are the rules these are the rules that you use, right? That might be something we can do.
Yeah, if people want Turkidorah's stats, like I can make a post for them. They're pretty scuff in some ways, but in other ways, they're very cool, so... yeah, I'd maybe put that out there. I do want to run something that is a combined enemy again, whether it's a Turkidorah or a Voltron, but I'll see where I can fit that in, because I want to touch that idea again. But I think that's going to do it for the episode this week. So thanks a ton, everybody out there, for swinging by and listening to this fun little ramble about Lancer. If you're into the Lancer RPG, not only did we talk to Vex just last week, there's a whole bunch of awesome Lancer writers and creators linked below that you can go ahead and check out for more stuff that you can add onto your Lancer games. As well, I want to give a shout out to the Untold Stories Project channel, where I was running this game. And you can check out all their other ongoing series and one-shots. They have an ongoing Mutants and Masterminds game. I believe we're coming back soon, if not the day this is out, with the continuation of the Titan City Thanksgiving game, which tells you how much we love to play our one-shots, as well as their new ongoing series, Something in the Dark. And also check out their YouTube channel, because it has the back catalog of all the one-shots. I think everything is up by now. Yeah, no, I think everything's up at this point. So if you missed any of those one-shots, go check them out on their YouTube channel. As well, please check out our YouTube channel, Win with Dice, where you have weekly tabletop RPG podcasts and gaming streams. Took a bit of a break in the last week, but I'm currently playing through Control, Baldur's Gate 3, and Mass Effect Andromeda. So go ahead and check those out if you're interested. Might do Titanfall 2 after Control is finished, unless I force myself to buy Alan Wake 2 and see if my poor computer can handle it without exploding. Which I don't have high hopes. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this week. Anything else before we head on out of here?
No, I think we're good to go.
All right. Well, for all of our giant turkey monster GMs and players out there, just remember to keep on winning with dice, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.